What's up, YouTube? We are live, and we are Reason, religiously educated atheists, secularists, and other non-theists. Welcome back to another great episode, Pseudoscience. And today, the Secular Roundtable is going to be gathering +1 with Alienated Reality to discuss this beloved topic. And without further ado, let's get this thing started. I'm Aeolus, your host. I go by Your Favorite Atheist. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram on the newly created page at GodWorksOut. You can also find me at the Facebook pages, facebook.com/philosophical-atheism and facebook.com/religionhurtshumanity. We also have a brand new website, thesecularroundtable.com, where you can go over there to check out some of the t-shirts that we have, atheist-related apparel. We also blog about atheism and religion-related topics. So head over there and check that out. Let me also give a shout-out real quick to our sponsor, Atheist Box. It's the very first monthly subscription box designed specifically for you, yes, you atheist heathens, and they're all about promoting positivity and the understanding of science without bashing and trashing any religion whatsoever. That's something that we can all stand behind. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, head over to atheismbox.com and check it out. And if you are the special kind of person that likes to contribute monetarily, you can head over to patreon.com/reason to support great things like this live show, and as we always joke about, getting Brendan some good video editing software. So, Dieter, since you're unmuted there, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, general introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Dieter Lugum. I debunk things. That's apparently what I do on the internet. I do social commentary. I talk about science and how a lot of people just don't understand it. I rail against religion because I see it as demonstrably harmful to society, and I just like talking about stuff. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, and obviously YouTube at Dieter Lugum on all of those. I also run the website, godlessvoices.com. You have to actually type it physically into the bar because no one knows what it is yet, and Google's picky. But it's just getting started, so don't be surprised when it's blank and not very exciting. But working on it, and pretty soon I'll be starting the Godless Voices podcast, but we don't have to talk about that here. So, yeah, jump to next one.
I'll go ahead and go, I guess. I am the Godless Engineer. You can find me on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter and Instagram and all those lovely social media places. Please go there to check me out. On Facebook, all you have to do is type in Godless Engineer or Godless Engineering, and you will be able to find my page and my various groups on Facebook. I would implore you to join our main group, Godless Engineering. We just broke past the 10,000 member mark, so we've got a pretty active group, and I think everybody would enjoy it.
Hi everybody, I am Brendan. I go by the Prototype Atheist on social media. So you can find me on YouTube, where I put out regular videos on the topics of religion and science, atheism, and occasionally politics. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm pretty active on there, and I also post on Facebook fairly regularly. Although, obviously, the last couple of weeks with the holidays and everything, I've been a little less active, so I'm still around. You can find me in all those places, as well as here every Sunday night for the Reason Show. And I just recently hit 1,000 subscribers, which I was aiming for by the end of the year. I did hit that goal literally on December 31st, so thank you to everyone who subscribed. If you haven't yet, please come over and check me out.
Let's give a little hand clap to Brendan for that 1,000 subscribers we pushed so hard for. And let's also give a special warm welcome to our guest today, Alienated Reality. He is a fellow atheist that I have met on social media. And here's the kicker, guys. We're always interested in having new perspectives. So everyone, welcome Alienated Reality to the show.
Hey, you can find me on Instagram at Alienated Reality and also on YouTube at Alienated Reality. I'll be posting videos soon. And that's pretty much it for mine as far as plugging.
Sounds great. Welcome to the show. So today's show is about pseudoscience. And before we even get into it, let's just describe what pseudoscience is. I'd like to quote Bill Nye here from the Bill Nye the Science Guy TV show. When he did his pseudoscience show, he basically said that science is demonstrable and pseudoscience is not. Science is backed by evidence and pseudoscience is not. So let's talk about why pseudoscience is prevalent, or why people are apt to believe pseudoscience. Well, as humans, we tend to be an intellectually lazy bunch. We also tend to be superstitious, and we come with a lot of psychological biases, such as suggestibility. If some random complete stranger comes up and tells you something extraordinary, you're not probably going to believe it. But if your father, your mother, or somebody that you value or are more likely to believe, you would believe it. Then there's also, there's other psychological biases such as post hoc, ergo propter hoc, which is after this, because of this. So basically, my child developed autism after I gave him a vaccine. So yes, anti-vaccination movement is a pseudoscience. Another thing is we had pseudoscience before we had science. So, before we actually had the scientific method and ways of understanding our world, people were just speculating and attempting to do science. And a lot of this is still around, such as astrology. Pseudoscience also has a lot of unfalsifiable claims. We'll talk more about that as the show progresses, because most of these topics are unfalsifiable. So just to wrap that up, I wanted to talk to you about why pseudoscience is bad. So I'd like to put a quote here by Voltaire. Those that can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And that is the most extreme example. We can talk about faith healing and the anti-vaccination movement that actually gets people sick and or killed. But it's not always that extreme. Your beliefs change the way you perceive the world. And, an example of that is climate change. If you don't believe that climate change is happening, then you're not going to see it happening, and your confirmation bias, going back to those psychological biases, are not going to allow you to accept that. And finally, I will say that it's important to dismiss these ideas of pseudoscience, because what you believe also affects your actions. So if you believe that God said homosexuality was a sin, you're probably going to treat homosexuals a little bit differently. That's just one example. But what you believe affects your reality as well as your actions. How you act is based on what you think and believe. So with that being said, now that we've outlined a couple reasons of why pseudoscience persists and why it is harmful, we're going to head over to Dieter Lukum. Dieter, with his special chat for us tonight.
Don't bother me. I talking stuff. Alright, so now they have a basic rundown of why it's dangerous. I wanted to go into a bit of fundamental ideas of things that, over umbrella, I guess, of some silly things about pseudoscience. And this is the wonderful topic of woo. I think everyone's heard the phrases woo-woo talk or just woo speculation, but I don't think many people really go into what woo is. Woo is the systematic application of sciencey sounding words to give credibility to things that deserve no credibility. It's saying things like atomic or energy, especially energy, quantum or evolution, or any of these words that actually have credibility behind them and actually have a definition people tend to use in the pseudoscience market to lend credibility to whatever they're talking about. And this can be anything. And this is where it gets so frustrating. Someone's messaging me on Facebook. I'm still not going to break stride in my comments. Woo talk is misleading. It's intentionally misleading. And it can be seen in every single application. So, of pseudoscience, I mean. So when anyone uses woo talk, you can identify it by using sciencey sounding words but them not having any application to what the person is actually saying. If you see this, call them out on it, because they won't be able to describe it, because it's all just nonsense. Now that we have a basic understanding of woo, I'm going to go into some lovely examples. The one that I really wanted to get into, I'm actually going to do last because I'm going to talk about it forever. Before that, dowsing. Dowsing is the idea that you can hold up a random set of sticks or a random set of wire or anything like that and just kind of go, I can feel with my body, using it as some kind of conduit to the energy of water and use it to actually find water. Dowsing is also applied to other things, like being able to find lost items or being able to find whatever. But it's always the idea that human beings are somehow able to be like a, I don't know, a vessel of the energy of the universe, and then using it and manipulating it to get some feeling of something. That's basically the best explanation I can give for it, because that's how ridiculous it actually is. And this isn't like an old school, people used to do this, and then they stopped because they found out it's ridiculous. People are still doing it. There are dowsing, like, parties, more or less. There are conventions where people actually test out their skills. But, like Aeolus said in the beginning, whenever it's actually tested, blind or double blind, it doesn't matter, it always fails. Like, every time. It's always the same as if you were guessing that something was happening by chance. And this is a hallmark of pseudoscience. Whenever it's tested, it just doesn't work. Moving on from dowsing, but still staying with my completely accidental water theme, is my just most favorite and most hated piece of pseudoscience, homeopathy. Homeopathy is the idea that it comes off of like a really old school idea of like cures like, meaning if you have a rash or something, something else that causes a rash will be able to cure it for some reason. This is completely false, by the way, but when that idea was being performed, it would be something like, oh, I have a muscle tenseness, like my muscles are locking up for some reason. You know what also knots up people's muscles? Rattlesnake venom. And then they would just like spread it over themselves, and it wouldn't help ever. But people thought it did, and occasionally they'd stumble on some kind of treatment that actually did something, and that perpetuates the idea that it actually works. One good answer with 1,000 false ones, they'll only remember the good one. But anyway, along those lines, homeopathy is the idea that an unbelievably small amount of some active ingredient, like let's say you have an itch, so they give you like, wow, poison ivy extract. They put a tiny amount of the poison ivy extract into the water, and then they give it to you. And you're just like, whoa, what are you talking about? They're making people drink they're making people actually drink this stuff? That seems really dangerous. Don't worry, it's not. Because homeopathy uses, I didn't actually write down the number, but I'm just going to throw it on the top of my head. It's like 30 KIC or something like that. And this means like a 1 part in 30 to like the 100,000th power. And if you like play out that number, it's like 1 particle or 1 unit of that to every piece of matter in the known universe. There is nothing in this water. It is just water. But people are selling it for an unbelievable, like, they're selling like a vial like this big of water for like $4. And it's just, they put a label on normal water, and then they say, yeah, this is rattlesnake venom, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then they give it to people, they buy it, and a giant industry exists on this. In Britain, there's actually a freaking hospital that is surrounded around the ideas of homeopathy. They don't do anything. They literally do nothing. Unless you're dehydrated, they do nothing. And this is where the problem is people think it works, it has a bit of the placebo effect going on, so if people ever feel better, they attribute it to this medicine, and then they don't seek actual treatment. I don't know if any studies actually been done on this, but I won't be surprised if people actually die because they take little vials of water as opposed to actual treatment. But like a lot of pseudosciences you'll probably hear in the next couple minutes, when people are actually sick and really feel like they're dying, more often than not, they'll go to a hospital. But when it's slightly inconvenient kind of sickness, or a progressive, we don't have a cure for it kind of sickness, people will take that little niche, that little bit of unknown, and shove as much pseudoscience into it as they possibly can, and then claim that it helps. But it doesn't. It's harmful, it wastes money, and it's just insulting to human intellect. Alright, so that's what I got for that one.
So we've got Mr. Lowercase A over in the comments section mentioned that no one passed James Randi's $1 million test, which include dowsing. If you guys are not familiar with that, check it out. I know that he very publicly embarrassed that dowsing expert that was on his show. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. Katie says that water cures everything. Yes, but that's basically what it is.
Mr. Lowercase A did this thing about... Yeah, I knew Pete Sullivan would mention this. Yeah, vaccines are different because you normally don't actually inject the literal virus into the person. You have to inject like an alternate form of it, a mutated form, or a dead version. Because you're injecting viruses into people, it's injecting viruses into people, you'll kill them. Or you'll just get them sick. So it's not quite the same. And also, very rarely, people actually understood what caused stuff, so they just found something that they knew caused that symptom and assumed that it would fix that symptom in a tiny little amount. But whatever, man. You believe what you want, crazy person. I'm done.
So shout out to all of our viewers over on YouTube, and who is next? Who's up next?
I guess that would be me. I have a few topics that I was going to cover tonight, and I'll pretty much just try to fit them all into my small amount of time here. But with tonight's subject being on pseudoscience, I felt that a brief overview of some things that you may not have known were pseudoscience, or maybe you might have just wanted to know more about it. So tonight, I've got 4 things selected to talk about: crop circles, Dogon people of Series B. I really hope I don't butcher this name. Eric von Daniken or something. Sorry, it's the original ancient astronauts guy, and then full moon lunacy. So to start off, we're talking about crop circles. Everybody knows crop circles. They're in popular culture all over the place. But crop circles, or corn circles as they are called in the UK, was a drunken mistake by 2 Englishmen in the late 1970s. They had the idea of creating fantastic geometric shapes in cornfields so that they could be seen from the sky. Due to copycats and the tabloid media, of course, the crop circle phenomenon grew in popularity. They even have a name for people that study crop circles: serologists. They are people that specialize in the study of crop circles. For the most part, they are known for the hoaxes that they are, but still some cling to the idea that some of them, or all of them, are genuine. They were often pranced out as evidence in the 80s and the 90s. Regardless of the fact that they are hoaxes, they are impressive works of art in many cases. So let's start off with the paranormal explanations and see what they have to say. And then what we're going to do is walk back over the bridge to reality and actually learn some useful knowledge. So despite having the original prankster drunks fess up in 1991, many today still believe that they are carved by UFOs visiting our planet. People that believe this completely disregard the illogical nature of aliens being able to perfectly avoid radar detection, yet not smart enough to realize that their ship made indentations on fields. Other theories state that aliens are so bored cruising around space that they felt the need to come here and leave coded messages in tall grass to confuse the simple creatures on Earth. These are just some of the popular explanations among those that actually believe that the crop circles are real. Other explanations include plasma vortexes, secret government activity, because this stuff just doesn't go without some kind of secret government shit going on, or Earth energy. Theories that include alien activity also completely disregard the fact that it would mean that among all of the advanced technology they had on their ships, they carried wooden planks and a rope, so that when they meticulously proceeded to bend the stalks in order to create the designs, they just didn't have any other better tools. So there are some out there that don't believe that aliens carved them out, but instead try to come up with some kind of natural explanation for them. And some of these natural explanations include isolated tornadoes and ball lightning. Theoretically, it could account for the bending of the stalks, but it's highly unlikely, especially due to no evidence whatsoever actually supporting those hypotheses. And the complexity of most of the crop circles makes it highly unlikely that they were created by natural forces. Now, back over to the side of reality, all the explanations explained above really seem unnecessary when you consider the fact that there are people and teams of people out there whose hobby is precisely to build crop circles. There was even a competition in 1992 for it. The competition is noteworthy here because the forms that were required in the competition were ones that are supposedly hard to fake. The competition was an awesomely successful experiment in proving that humans could not only make the complex designs, but also do it without leaving a trace that they were there. Numerous tools were used to accomplish this, including ropes, telescopic rods, wood planks, and specially linked ladders that would allow the crop artists to leave the field without there being a trace of them. So now to go on to the Dogon people of Sirius B, this was actually really interesting for me to read about and figured some stuff out about. The Dogon people are actually a group of people in Mali, Africa. The first reported contact with this ethnic group was in 1903 by a French colonial army lieutenant, Louis Desploignes. Two French anthropologists studied the group in 1931, which they periodically did studies on for 30 years. Supposedly, the two anthropologists had met with the Dogon elders and were told of details about Sirius B that seemed like they shouldn't have known considering the current level of technology. They described the orbit of Sirius B to include surrounding planetary bodies, orbit time, and weight. These descriptions they gave came pretty fucking close to the actual stats of Sirius B. And the Dogon mythology involved that star, Sirius B, and this belief, and they claim that this belief is thousands of years old. Since Sirius B is unable to be seen with the naked eye, questions were raised as to how they could know this shit. It is also claimed that they knew of Saturn's rings and Jupiter's moons. Now, just to prance out a little bit more crazy because it's not fucked up already, Robert Temple claimed that the Dogon were visited by an alien race about 5,000 years ago who imparted knowledge onto this group of people. The Dogon's actual mythology is the basis for this hypothesis. But the myths were mistranslated. Instead of their Lord Nomos coming to Earth from Sirius B, the myth actually says that he came from Sirius. This is comparable to believing that Stargate is real because the U.S. is carrying out extraplanetary missions since the late 90s. Another crazy-ass idea is that large amounts of melanin in the skin of the Dogon people gave them the ability to pick up on certain vibrations from Sirius B. Currently, there's no fucking proof of this horseshit whatsoever. This idea totally disregards the fact that many other peoples in Africa are known to have large amounts of melanin in their skin, and yet they don't have this magical ability to sense vibrations from Sirius B. Heading back over to reality now, even if the anthropologists were correct about the Dogon belief system, they don't go anywhere to prove that E.T. got stranded in Africa and shared information with these guys in an effort to phone home. Sirius B had been discovered in the 19th century, and it was well known by the 1920s, so any European traveler coming through the area might have shared the information with the Dogons. And that is a much easier explanation than aliens visited and gave them the information. Let's see, I lost my place, sorry. Although the anthropologists may not be correct, the source of the beliefs that they stated is a very limited circle of people. And when another anthropologist studied the Dogons, he stated that knowledge of the stars is not important either in daily life or in ritual to the Dogons. The position of the sun and the phases of the moon are more pertinent for Dogon reckoning. No Dogon outside of the circle of the informants had heard of either Sirius or Sirius B. Most important, no one even within the circle of the informants had heard or understood that Sirius was a double star. So if that observation is indeed true, then none of the explanations above even matter because it was pretty much all bullshit to begin with. Let's see. I've gone through 2, and I think I've really run up my time here. So, are there any questions so far, or maybe let somebody else go, and I can try to fit in the other 2 later?
Yeah, let's just let someone else go next, and then if we have time, we can touch on those other 2. Brendan or Brandon?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go next. So basically what I want to discuss is paranormal activities, and that's a pretty broad category. And basically what it covers is things that invoke supernatural explanations rather than natural ones. And they're pretty much outside of what we would typically expect to see in the natural world. And so because of this, they are things that really are outside of the purview of the scientific method and can't be tested by science because they can't be reproduced under controlled conditions. So some things like, this is includes things, but isn't limited to things like extrasensory perception, like ESP, spiritualism, psychokinesis, levitation, numerology, things of that nature that are probably familiar to people. Yeah, I don't apparently my camera's not working, but anyways, maybe it'll pop up. But you can hear me, and that's what's important, I guess. So there's several examples of famous individuals who claim like psychic powers and things like that people might have known of. One really famous example of this is Sylvia Browne, that people probably know. She claimed to be a psychic or a medium, and she appeared frequently on like Montel Williams or Larry King's show. And she's made these claims such as like she knows conditions of heaven. She knows that heaven exists, and she claims that like heaven is always a constant 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and that it exists 3 feet off of ground level, in our reality, but that it exists at a quote-unquote higher vibrational level than the rest of reality or perceived reality by most people, which again is kind of a constant theme here that was brought up a little bit earlier about these vibrational levels. That's like a constant theme that we hear about with these claims, these kind of pseudoscientific claims and things. She also said things like there's no insects in heaven unless you want there to be insects in heaven, and that like pets can go to heaven, but that's a fairly common one that people try to use. Even the Pope used that recently to try to console a young boy whose pet had died. She also claimed to like be able to talk to angels, and she said that she had a spirit guide named Francine that would give her information on like her past lives and things. So and basically besides being generally sketchy all around with these claims and not having any evidence for them, she infamously told the parents of a couple children who were missing that they were deceased, that they were no longer alive. This was Sean Hornbeck and Amanda Berry. She told their parents that they were no longer alive, and in fact they eventually were discovered later to be very much alive. So not only does that prove her quote-unquote abilities demonstrably false, but it just goes to show how belief in this kind of stuff can really be harmful. It's not just fun and games. It's not just like, oh, I want to believe it because maybe it's true. I mean, this is just flat out harmful. I mean, these parents might have literally lost all hope or stopped looking for their children because they were told by this woman that they were dead. and depending on what kind of stock they put into her opinion, they could have altered the way they went about going about things. So and also she predicted that she would die at age 88 and actually died at age 77. So there's kind of the kicker with her. Another one was John Edward. I'm sure people are familiar with. He had his own show. He was like a psychic or a medium again, and he had that show called Crossing Over. And basically he would claim to speak to like dead relatives of people and communicate information back to them. So he would go around the studio audience and ask them these questions. And a lot of the time, it's typical with this type of people, like even like Benny Hinn and similar charlatans of this nature. They kind of have information that they've gotten somehow beforehand, either through a survey or from family members or whatever the case may be. So they already know something about the people that they're going to be talking to, and then they kind of lead them with their questioning, or they ask really vague general questions to lead them along, to kind of pull information out of them, and then as soon as they get a hit, they can follow up on that lead and kind of go with that. And then anytime they're kind of not exactly right, they can just brush it off and then go another route or direction with it, pretty much in stride. But he also faced a lot of criticism because he would tape these long, like 8-hour segments for these shows, and like people who actually went and attended the tapings would say, oh, well, they edited out all the stuff that he got wrong for the most part. So basically what you see on TV is just him seeming to get things right. So, not only was it editing, but he also uses what's called hot and cold reading, which, is kind of, you kind of throw out these general questions and then you can get these responses. And depending on the responses that people give you, where you want to go. So, people like this, they definitely have a skill. It takes personal skills. It takes, definitely a skill. I mean, nothing that's actually supernatural, nothing that's actually founded with any evidence, but I mean, it is a skill that you have to be able to do this for sure. And we brought up James Randi a little earlier, and he certainly has. He's if you haven't heard of James Randi, I'll call him a debunker, but I know he doesn't like using that term specifically, but I can't think offhand of what he prefers to go by. But he's been doing this for 40 or 50 years, where he challenges people. He's gone on, like, he used to go on like the Johnny Carson show, and he used to go on challenge these different people who were making these different supernatural claims, and challenge them to reproduce it, or he would understand how they were doing things, and then he would take away that ability from them and say, all right, go ahead and do it. Or he puts out all these different challenges, and nobody can fulfill them. So he's definitely one of the most amazing people out there who kind of goes after these types of people. Lastly, I just kind of wanted to discuss numerology. That's another thing. So numerology is basically the idea that numbers have like a special significance to specific times or events, maybe like important people or events in history. And as long as being atheist and everything, a couple notable examples from like Hebrew culture are Aeolus growing devil horns out of his head, apparently. But the number 4 and the number 3 in Hebrew culture were considered quote unquote holy. So when you add those together, what do you get? 7. So 7's kind of another holy number. That's why we have 7 days of creation, for example. And another example in Hebrew culture was the number 40. The number 40 was kind of a general term for like a lot of something. Like today we might say, oh, there was hundreds, there was thousands, just as a general sense of, there was a lot of something. So for them, 40, for whatever reason, was, a really large number. So you can see that when they're describing the Great Flood, 40 days and nights, or, the number of children killed for mocking Isaiah, again, it's 40. They're just kind of throwing out that number like, oh, yeah, it was a whole lot. So, but, overall, basically, numbers are just human inventions. They're arbitrary. There's no special meaning to them. They're also highly malleable, and they can be manipulated really easy. So you can make them kind of say whatever you want, or, give people kind of a confirmation bias to make it seem like there's something behind these numbers that are significant. If you remember, anybody remembers after 9/11 happened, there was a lot of that stuff going around, like, oh, if you add 9 + 1 + 1, or you multiply this and that and the other, and all these supposed hidden meanings behind 9/11, when really it's just playing around with numbers. Also, there was that movie, I think it was called The Number 23, that had Jim Carrey in it, that was kind of centered around this whole idea of numerology. And if anybody's seen that movie, you know that you can just kind of attach meaning to really any numbers that you want to. So I think that about wraps it up for like a couple examples of paranormal activity. But this obviously is a broad category. Can also like dousing, like Dieter Lucan was talking about earlier, where people claim to like find water or whatever using these sticks. Also things like ghosts, we all know that, like Bigfoot, Yetis, chupacabras, all that kind of stuff. And sadly enough, most of these things have their own like niche followings and like TV shows and all that kind of stuff, which is unfortunate because of course they present them all as being like real and actually credible when we all, informed people know that they're really not. But unfortunately, there's been many studies done, including one, I think, out of Baylor University, and I think it was in 2006, that kind of showed that most people actually have some kind of belief in the paranormal. So even if, obviously most religious things are paranormal, like heaven, gods, things of that, spirituality, things of that nature, but, it can go beyond that, it can go outside of religion, and unfortunately, a lot of people, I don't know what the exact percentage is of people that believe in supernatural, but it's, it's higher than people that just believe in religion, unfortunately. And so, that's kind of why we're tackling the subject. We got to kind of debunk these things and, get some real information out there and just address them for the pseudoscience that they are. So that's kind of my thing. Maybe I can get my camera back up and running, but if you guys have any comments or anything, go right ahead.
I mean, there's not really much that we can add to things that don't have scientifically backed evidence, things that you cannot replicate, and things that are not demonstrable. So, as you mentioned, all of those things fail to be reproduced when performed by someone else, or when claimed by someone else, they tend to be something totally different. So that's all that I have to say about that.
I'd like to say that I liked the movie 23 with Jim Carrey. But I liked it as far as like a movie watching it one time goes, not like anything serious.
Oh, two things I wanted to add to basically what everyone's been saying is there's two characteristics of people that I seem to see in every type of pseudoscience. One of them is people want to feel special and want to feel like they have power. That's one characteristic that seems unanimous. That everyone that has a pseudoscientific idea are either saying, I have secret knowledge of how the world actually works, or I personally have magic powers that you do not. And then, when any of these things are tested, the other thing happens. There is always an excuse. Every single time. The energy in the room isn't right. Oh, like I've heard literally, your skepticism is turning off my powers. Like, there is always an excuse, and it's always really sad. That's all I had.
Also, for monetary reasons, people tend to back pseudoscience, but those happen to be the con men that realize that it is a pseudoscience, or they may have fooled themselves. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and let Brandon, a.k.a. Alienated Reality, welcome him to the show, and he's going to go ahead and give his expose on creationism.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be tackling intelligent design or creationism, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much intelligent design is the belief that there's this entity out there that created everything, from the cells in your body to just the stars in our galaxy. The reason that this is nonsense is because there's actually no way to actually prove that. It's like some invisible character that we can't see or test or prove that exists is out there, and it created everything. Because some people from antiquity believed that this entity exists. Pretty much, it's the equivalent of me worshiping a volcano and saying, "Oh shit!" Every time it's mad, it's like it's attacking us and killing us, so we have to, praise volcanoes, the volcano god. It's just a ridiculous notion and everything. Intelligent design, you can look at, the human species as just all the mistakes in our engineering, you can tell it's not, an intelligent design, designer, in place. It's pretty much just, random chance and natural selection, and you can see that through like our trachea and our esophagus, where we're breathing and eating out of the same pathways where we can choke and die, and that's not an intelligent design. No engineer that I can even imagine would design the human body like that. And you're trying to suggest that your God is all powerful and all knowing, which means he can do anything and he can make the perfect organism. And it's just ridiculous, believing that we're the center of the universe when it's clearly not. We can see 93 billion light years into into space, and we don't see a God. We don't see any trace or any evidence for that type of shit. So it's just a ridiculous notion. I could go on and on about just different things, just our waste and reproductive systems are all in the same area. That is a cause for bacteria growth that can harm us, cause of diseases, or more prone. So it's just nothing about our design suggests that, that it was intelligently designed. So that's pretty much, my gist on the, pseudoscience of creationism is just total bullshit. I guess we can comment more.
So yeah, I mean, with intelligent design, obviously those things you bring up are good examples of like really poor design. We also have an appendix that is useless and can cause problems. We have wisdom teeth that come in. We have a lot of these things that are pretty much design flaws, if you will. Yeah. And so the idea that an advanced primate, which we are, is like the ultimate, in all of creation as far as like living beings, is really an absurd idea. The other problem is, and with creationism, or especially like biblical creationism, there is other creationism out there related to other religions, but typically we're talking about biblical creationism. Even if you prove there was a creator, even if we're not necessarily perfect or whatever, if life was created, if we were created, whatever the case may be, that still gets you no further to proving that the God of the Bible exists at all. You still have to provide that evidence. So there's that. And then when you say intelligent design, some people do use that term to refer to kind of like creationism, like you're talking about, or the idea that it's some kind of higher power created life on Earth or created human beings. But also that's a very specific term that relates to the kind of pseudo-theory that was created by Behe and Dembski out of the Discovery Institute, that kind of try to present this as an actual alternative to Darwinian evolution, and that they tried to put mathematical models and formulas to kind of prove this. They tried using this kind of woo, like Dieter was talking about earlier, with like irreducible complexity or specified complexity, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, and I know Dieter wants to jump in here, so I'll let him. But obviously, Brandon, feel free to jump in with any other commentary or thoughts that you had as well.
Sure.
One thing, I don't know if you mentioned it completely, but the intelligent design movement was entirely concocted right after creationism was struck down in public schools. It was definitely a woo thing, and people use it as a woo thing. I'm not even pretending that it's not. But it was also just a flat cover-up. The most adorable example of this was when Of Pandas and People is their famous textbook, and it was a straight-up copy. It was a straight-up find, copy, and paste, switching creationism with intelligent design. And that my favorite phrase is "see design proponicists," yes. Where part of the word was found, and then they inserted what was it? They inserted intelligent design proponent into creationist. So C design proponicist. I just love it. It's wonderful.
It's like it's like some reverse woo. It's like reverse woo. It's like ironic woo, going back right onto them. So
I just want that on a T-shirt. If I get a T-shirt, I want C design proponicist.
Checkmate,
hey,
scientist.
That could be your design.
I was actually going to point out the fact that, like all these other pseudosciences and topics and whatnot, they regularly totally dismiss like reality and for their own version of reality. And what I mean by this is, like, for instance, I've got Ken Ham's coloring book that he wrote so long ago that has you'll see the images come up on social media often. It's the one with Adam and Eve, and then the T-Rex is right next to him eating a leaf. And in the book, they actually say that, of course, the worldwide flood explains why we have fossils, and that fossils can actually be made very quickly. Which totally disregards everything that we know about fossils. I actually recently uploaded a video where I discuss the different fossilization techniques, and a lot of them take like significant amount of time in order for them to actually occur. So like the reality of fossils doesn't even mesh with creationism or anything like that. But another way to go about this is the fact that, Ken Ham and other creationists assert that, people lived alongside dinosaurs. Well, if that were the case, then we would find dinosaur bones and human bones right next to each other, or at least in the same vicinity, in the same rock layers, at the same point in time. And we just simply don't see that anywhere in reality at all.
It's because Satan scattered the fossils everywhere.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot. Yeah, Satan, of course. I forgot about that fucker.
It's like you're just denying it. You're denying reality.
No, it wasn't Satan. It was God. On the 8th day after he rested, he planted all these, fossils and other things to test our faith. That's what it was.
But you see, there's always an excuse. There's always a way. Like in science, you can't kind of say. Not even kind of. You can't say stuff like, oh, you being in the room makes the test invalid, but I'm still right. You'd be like, all right, then make a better test, or isolate your data better. You don't get to have these stupid outs. And it's almost like compounding your outs makes you more legitimate in those circles. Because you're just like, oh, that's a good point. I can use that. Therefore, you're better. It's madness.
The worst
it's a little known
about
fact
this is that we don't. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's a little known fact that I can actually levitate, but only when no one else is in the room. So, and also when no cameras are present. So sorry guys, you have to take my word for it.
I become God at the heat death of the universe.
I would believe that.
So here's a question that I'm going to pose to the group, and all of you can weigh in on that before we actually head into the hypocrite of the week. Is that what do you think that we need to do to get rid of all of this crazy pseudoscience? Because we don't live in a time where pseudoscience is the only explanation of the universe and the understanding of the world that we live in. We actually live in a time where we have sufficient evidence to debunk pseudoscience claims, and yet they still persist. Despite all the evidence, despite all of their suspension of logic and reason, it still continues to persist, and so does their delusion. So what can we do about this? I mean, we're being reasonable. Our podcast is named Reason. What more do we need to do to get rid of this pseudoscience?
Well, I think that it starts with addressing religion and religious claims, because that is the kind of socially acceptable version of supernatural beliefs that it's just accepted. It's generally accepted. Whatever belief in a god, in a disembodied mind, or belief in angels or an afterlife. You start with that, and most people are religious, and it kind of goes from there. I actually made a video relating to this a few months back called "Skepticism in a World Conditioned Against It," and basically I was kind of discussing this fact, how when people are, raised to kind of, believe the first thing that they're told and that they don't need evidence for it, they can just take it on faith. And not only that, but going beyond that, that anybody that tries to tell you otherwise is trying to, lead you astray, essentially. So this gets ingrained very early, and it's through religion. And I think that's, religion is kind of a gateway into this line of thinking where supernatural things can exist and where we don't need evidence to prove things. So I think that's a start, and being atheists and skeptics, that's where we can kind of start. But going beyond that as well, because I don't want to paint it like only religious people or like all religious people except, pseudoscience or these supernatural claims. There are even atheists that believe in things like ghosts or spiritualism and things of that nature. New Age, as GE found out recently. There's even atheists who kind of think, that this kind of spiritual realm exists, because, atheism, after all, is just a lack of belief in gods, which is kind of, more specific. It's a subset of supernaturalism. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, basically we can, continue trying to speak out against childhood indoctrination, speak out against, the propagation of religious teachings, and this general idea that, we don't need evidence for things to accept them, and that, we can just kind of believe what we want to be true, regardless of, if it actually aligns with reality or not.
All right. Since I rose my hand in the chat, whatever. Anyway, so my two big ways of actually dealing with this issue is, first and foremost, education. Free, easy access to education. Across the board, always useful. That being said, and considering that a whole lot of the opposition to education is stuff like pseudoscience or religion or things like that, we have to stop letting pseudoscientific and religious or any other ideas based on faith be legitimate answers. The moment we stop respecting faith and we stop respecting people's ideas by fiat, the better off we'll be. Seriously, if we can just do that and relegate religious ideas to any other magical flight of fancy, then we'll just be better off. And these ideas will die a very quick death. The only thing keeping them afloat is our mutual agreement to go oh, those people are just silly, we're just going to let them believe what they want. No, I have more respect for people than that. That's what Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I guess I'll go next. For me, as far as combating these beliefs and whatnot, just to reiterate what Dieter just said, it's education is going to be the biggest thing. As I'm sure most people know by now, I am an anti-theist. But I'm an anti-theist in more of an education way. Like, I want to educate, or not me personally, but I want the human race to get educated enough to where we don't need religion and whatnot. So it's not really a forceful kind of anti-theism. It's more of a education-based anti-theism. But I think one of the biggest things that we can do and to help stifle these kind of pseudoscience beliefs is to keep criticizing them whenever they pop up. It's like if somebody has a hypothesis, we approach it, and we try to, we try to invalidate it. And, there's usually a few things that occur when you try to do that. Either it gets invalidated very easily just by using your own common fucking sense, or they construct these kind of arguments that the phrase used to describe them is "can't even be wrong," and what that means basically is that they don't even meet the criteria of being able to determine whether or not they're correct or if they're incorrect. So a lot of the times that's what you run into, is just these claims that don't even meet a basic criteria for true or false test. And so I think that, keeping on criticizing, these kind of pseudoscience beliefs, like just for instance, throwing these things out there, like ancient astronaut theory, keep on criticizing that. I think making Giorgio whatever a meme was a pretty good idea. Whoever first thought of doing that, because aliens. Um, and then more. Crap! I had a second one. More recently, the New Age belief stuff that Aeolus had mentioned, a lot of people want to say that those beliefs can't be harmful or they're not harming anybody. But, as I come to find out, that any kind of small belief that doesn't comport with reality, that doesn't really match reality, can be harmful. And while some people may not be using it, like for instance, Christians don't necessarily, not all Christians harm other people with their beliefs, but there are those few Christians that do. Same thing with New Age beliefs. I really don't see a difference in them. But yeah, I think criticism is going to be the main thing that really stifles these pseudoscience beliefs.
I believe, yeah, I also agree with the education part of it, obviously. But I also feel like that creationism or intelligent design or any pseudoscience was based solely on, I believe, from an evolutionary standpoint, where like many of the elders of the community would be looked up as gods or people who spoke to gods or had the insight or knowledge of gods. So many times, those pseudosciences, for instance, they claim, oh, God says this, thus, it's wrong, or, I want to make this land, a part of, this is claimed by our God. I believe from an evolutionary standpoint, it was important to believe in a God because it created unification for our society to unite. It also, helped with, if there was war or any type of conflict, believing in a God, knowing that if you die, you are going to live in this magical realm, in the sky. So, I mean, from an evolutionary standpoint, you can see that possibly it's, a survival mechanism. Just the belief in just ridiculous nonsense. It's not an appeal to our rational state or logical state of mind. It's just an appeal to our emotional state of mind, which is more prevalent in most humans. So that's my take on that.
Let me give a shout out to we've got Evo Obsolete over on Instagram, because they mentioned spirit science. And see, this is the thing about pseudoscience. There's something even as radical and as new as spirit science, which has absolutely no evidence whatsoever, and it just masquerades as basically a story, can actually captivate millions of people into believing, or at least just even giving thought to this nonsense, rather than believing what we actually have in front of us, our reality. Do you guys have anything to say about spirit science? If not, then we're heading into the hypocrite of the week. Martimer has a lot of good stuff on spirit science.
Spirit science. What would that be again?
You ever seen the blue rag doll? He's like, all stitched up, and he talks and like, "Hi, spirit science."
No, that doesn't ring a bell, but I'm kind of interested in it now.
Yes, you can probably have fun debunking that nonsense.
I don't know if it would take much to debunk it, but Oh well, yeah. I guess I don't really have much to say about spirit science other than from the sound of it, it sounds like you're trying to apply science to supernatural entities or supernatural things. Which, see, that's the thing about stuff being supernatural. If it's supernatural, that means that science can't explain it. You can't use science to empirically prove it, because once you can actually empirically prove it through science or whatnot, it's no longer supernatural. It's just natural. So anytime anybody talks to you about supernatural stuff, I mean that, yeah, I mean honestly, it's just it's ridiculous to even talk about it like in a scientific setting. That's why the whole creationism thing and everything kind of gets me on edge whenever it gets started to rear its ugly little dick into schools.
Anybody have anything else to say about pseudoscience before we go into the hypocrite of the week? Stall for me. It's reloading the page.
It's silly. Don't do it. It's a waste of time and money and possibly your health.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm familiar with this spirit science. I never heard of it. A quick Google search is not netting me much, other than there's some website that some guy created, and it sounds like a bunch of woo and bullshit, as you might expect. I don't know. Maybe we can convince James Randi to come on our next episode, and he can discuss it with us. Because yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't put much stock into it myself. So just kind of goes along the lines of a lot of the other things we've been talking about here tonight. So yeah, unless you have a case to state for it, I'm going to go ahead and just probably dismiss that one as well.
Yes, just save yourself the time. If you're interested in the debunking of spirit science, you can head over and check out Martimer's channel. I think he does a great job of that. There are a couple other channels, but just Google it if you're interested. It's still pseudoscience and it's still nonsense. So without further ado, we're going to head into my favorite part of our Reason Live show, Hypocrite of the Week! Woo! This week's Hypocrite of the Week is going to a pastor who refused to basically bury or offer funeral services to one of his church members who I believe was in a coma and was unable to tithe at the time, and that's why he's refusing her burial services. I think that's the story. I haven't watched the video yet, but it sounded very interesting, so we're going to go ahead and go into that and then have a discussion on it afterwards. So here we go. Just thumbs up if you guys can see it and hear it. We're just going to make us watch an ad.
Houston family is angry after being told that its 93-year-old matriarch will not be buried by their home church.
Ooh, I broke it.
I'm not sure what's happening, but it's exciting.
I broke it. I tried to go for the full screen and it denied me. Okay, we'll run it back. Can you guys still see it?
Yeah, we're fine.
Come on. Let's get the volume. Here we go. Oh, and we've got no volume for some reason. Huh. Weirdness. Try reloading this. Hashtag fail.
Don't worry, we have no trust in you whatsoever.
Dun dun dun.
Well, I'm kind of curious, what's going to make him a hypocrite? Because it sounds like they have stupid arbitrary rules, and they didn't follow the stupid arbitrary rules well enough.
Kinda sorta. Let's see if it'll work this time. Come on, baby. Cross your fingers. You know that good pseudoscience stuff?
It's like you didn't symbolically cannibalize our creator.
Oh, wow. It's still not working. Interesting. Oh. Are we being denied Hypocrite of the Week right now? Is that what's going on here?
Maybe they're such a powerful hypocrite that they don't want to be revealed.
Oh, alright. Revert back to discussion while I fix the situation.
Okay. Well, as far as what the topic seems to be about for Hypocrite of the Week, I find it pretty funny that he's like, "Oh, I see you haven't paid your tithes. I guess I can't officiate." I recently actually found out that there's a place in the Bible. I can't remember the exact verse right now, but there's a place in the Bible that actually says that pastors get paid, and they should get money without any kind of regret or anything like that. I might have to look that up.
There's another one that basically says the exact opposite.
Oh, really?
Like, for your faith, you should never do stuff with money. It's a thing. But of course it does, because the Bible is the hypocrite of the week.
Well, oddly enough, just a little bit of info on all that. There's Occam's razor. That's a term for a concept about finding the most plausible explanation for something, right? Well, actually, it was a concept that's been used by a lot of people before Occam. And the only reason why it's named for him is because it got brought up in these arguments that he was having with Pope John the 12th or something like that. But anyways, how it relates to here, crap, I forgot where I was going with this. So this is what happens when I come up with stuff off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, to me, it's just transparent, like crazy. It's like, oh, you didn't give us money, and that's all we actually care about. And we also care about you being as much as sheep as physically possible. So, didn't follow the rules, you don't get stuff. Didn't give us money, you also don't get stuff.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Well, actually, that did remind me of what I was going to say, actually, Dieter, so thank you for that. The reason why Occam is known for it is because he was in an argument with Pope John the 12th or whatever over like this one group's use of apostolic poverty or something like that. Basically, it's saying that Jesus and his apostles, they didn't own anything. Like they didn't have a lot of money or any money at all. Like they didn't have any possessions, and so that's what they clung to, like as a belief. They believed that they should live in poverty just like Jesus did. And of course, Occam, he railed against them and whatnot, and he eventually got thrown out of Britain for it, or excommunicated from the Catholic Church for it. Sorry. So I thought that was a little bit nice information there. And it seems like Aeolus is still out. Hey, who wants to learn about the ancient astronauts and where they came from? Let's.
I do.
Okay. Let's run through this. Okay, so the subject of ancient aliens.
Do they come from Kolob?
Yeah, you would think. The subject of ancient aliens is a pretty vast one, and there's actually a good like hours and hours long refutation of ancient aliens in general on YouTube. I would suggest anybody watching to actually go and check that out. But what I want to actually highlight right now is basically the man that started the entire fuckery that is ancient astronauts. That's Erich von Däniken. And he was a Swiss writer that actually convinced himself and a lot of other people that his science fiction books were actually true, when in reality they're about as real as a $3 bill. This guy was the person best known for this horseshit, but then Giorgio stepped up and took that position for the next generation. Many of his claims are said to be not even wrong, that I was talking about before. If you missed that part, and being not even wrong means that your argument or your premise or anything doesn't even meet the criteria for checking whether or not it's accurate or inaccurate. So that's pretty impressive in my opinion to be able to do that. But anyways, It generally comes up when someone not only doesn't make a valid point, but seems to not even know the nature of the discussion that they're having. This guy used his experiences as a hotel manager to write his first piece of shit book in 1968. He even constructed a theme park to display his crackpot ideas. Oddly enough, that sounds really familiar right now. Most of his books simply rehash the same tired old shit over and over again. His first book, Chariots of the Gods, which I will point out that most of his books end with "of the gods," I guess for dramatic effect. But he claims that aliens visited our planet thousands of years ago and lent a hand in the construction of different monuments all over the world and fucked with human evolution as well as started religious mythology. He uses quote-unquote evidence such as a map that depicts land below the ice of Antarctica, computer astronomy from Egyptian and Incan ruins, and a spaceport in the Andes, as well as ancient nav charts for space, as well, again, as any humanoid figure in ancient drawings that he claims are astronauts. The book simply just shows off his stupidity and inability to grasp simple concepts and blatant racism, as he believes that only modern white people are capable of innovation, imagination, and engineering. None of his books or claims really matter when he's a known fraud. He was not only convicted of embezzlement and tax evasion after his first book release, but he also admitted to forging many of the ancient artifacts allegedly depicting alien visitors. So, I mean, if you're fine with taking shit from a known fraud and just blatantly believing that, then you might as well be Mormon.
I can tell you wrote that beforehand.
Can you? Well, like I said, I didn't really know much about any of these topics, so I had to write stuff down, and I did it in kind of short notice, so I pretty much just read the script.
Fair enough. Is Aeolus dead? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to him, but I was able to pull up a story about this from a website. So I'll go ahead and just give you guys the description of what he was trying to present for the Hypocrite of the Week, and we can kind of get a discussion going here. So this is a story from November, so a couple months ago, or about a month and a half ago. And the story says that the family of a Houston woman claims that a historic local church refused to conduct a woman's funeral because she hadn't paid the adequate tithes, which is what we kind of had the idea about. It says that the pastor wouldn't let them hold the funeral there for this woman who was 93 years old who had passed away because she hadn't paid her dues in some time, which I'm assuming means tithes. So it says the story was first reported by a website called pimppreacher.com, and later followed up by. Okay, he's got it, so we're going to go ahead and go with the legit here, I guess, right? So let's roll the tape.
Sorry for the 20-minute delay.
We'll judge you very largely.
Try not to judge me too harshly, though. All right.
No, I will.
Here we go.
Got turn your camera on, bro.
Can you guys hear it?
Yeah, you need to have your camera on, or the YouTube thing doesn't work.
But can you hear it, though?
Nope.
No? Oh!
Forget it.
Well,
Brandon,
all right, Brendan, continue. Roll with it.
All right, let me post back up real quick. So, yeah, this church basically was refusing to have the funeral there because the pastor was saying that the woman had not attended the church in some time, claiming that she had not gone to the church in like 8 or 9 years because she was in and out of nursing homes and things of that nature. although her family had been going there for a long time and paying their tithes and all that kind of stuff. Apparently, basically, they have some bylaws at this church about the payment of tithes and how they will offer you services for a funeral and all that. And basically, the preacher was saying like, no, you haven't paid your tithes because you haven't come to church. Because a woman was, being cared for in nursing home or whatever facilities, and he's basically like, oh well, if the family cared so much, then why didn't one of them at least send $1 over to reserve her membership? So because this woman herself specifically did not have her membership retained at the church while she was, going to these various facilities and locations, he was refusing to do the funeral services. So we're not talking about like burial expenses here or anything. We're just talking about doing an actual funeral service for a actual deceased individual who has passed away, and then basically the family just ended up going to another church to get the funeral services. So that's pretty much the story. So you guys can go ahead and chime in with your commentary.
It doesn't sound so much like hypocrisy. It just sounds like being a pile of douchebags. Like, obviously the people are invested in that church. Obviously they care about the ceremony or whatever. And just being refused it is really rude. But it seems they're following the rules. So I can't exactly blame them for that, even though it's stupid and rude.
One thing that I failed to mention going through the article there was they also made mention that I guess whoever was in contact with the pastor from that website, pimppastors.com or whatever, actually offered to pay whatever fees they wanted in order for the church to conduct the funeral services for this woman, and the pastor refused. He was like, nope, I'm not doing it. So that's kind of like, I guess that's kind of where the hypocrisy can come in, because they were offering to cover the expenses, which is supposedly the issue. But it seems to me that the pastor's being very pedantic. Maybe there's some other history there with the family, but that seems very vindictive to me and very antithetical to what Christianity is supposed to be about, to what Jesus' teachings were about. So what do you guys think about that?
What's kind of interesting is that might make him less of a hypocrite. If he was actually cared so much about it being specifically that person tithing and doesn't actually care about the money, then that would make them, in my opinion, less of a hypocrite. Still stupid and rude.
What about forgiveness? What about forgiveness? I think I've read that one part of it, that the lady was in a coma for a little while, and she was basically unable to pay her tithes. And then his comment was, well, why didn't they send $1 per week in her absence?
I don't know. I don't care.
I mean, yes, we have passages in the Bible to say what you can pastor and not pastor for, but then we also have passages that say not to do it for the money. So, what's your take on that?
Well, I would like to point out that there's actually a passage in the Bible that talks about this idea that if you don't tithe to the church, you're actually stealing from the church. And so I think that's a little fucked up, in my opinion.
I think that the right thing to do here, I mean, obviously it wasn't a monetary thing. They're not telling us the whole story, or maybe we just don't have the whole story. But if someone has offered to pay for this lady's funeral and he's still not doing it, either he's just a douchebag, or maybe there's some unspoken history between the two that we just don't know about. But at the same time, like, in religious communities, there's a very common phrase called respect the dead, or God bless the dead. Well, you're supposed to let all that silly nonsense go. And especially because the Bible says that when you have an issue with someone, you're supposed to go to that person and try to resolve the issue with them if you can. But since this person has died and you're even unable to do it, you should still give them the proper burial service, in my opinion. But there was many things that we could have made him hypocrite of the week for. But that was just the main one, in my opinion. She was a member of the church. She became unable to pay her tithes because she was in and out of nursing homes and she was in a coma for some period of time, and she was just unable to monetarily contribute to the church. And we don't know if that's the real reason why, but according to the article, that's what it seemed like. Because his quote was, "Why didn't she send $1 every week? You know, why didn't the family send $1 per week?" Like, really, bro? Like, $1 is going to make the difference. Like, so you're telling me that if she was just that loyal and sent $1 per week, that you would have done her funeral? I mean, does that just not sound hypocritical to you, not even in the sense or the context of the Bible?
Well, I mean, this whole thing kind of strikes me as odd because, you know, what kind of church? I mean, I understand that most churches have like a membership tier where like you're actually considered a member of the church, as opposed to people who just kind of, you know, attend, even if they attend regularly, like if you're not officially a member. But it just seems odd to me because it's just basic human decency to, you know, in a time of a family's loss and someone's lost their life, to kind of aid them and help them through that time. And like I said, we're not talking about like funeral expenses, burial expenses. We're just talking about like having a service in this person's honor to acknowledge that they have, you know, passed on, they're no longer living, and just, you know, it shouldn't cost the church really much money at all to have, you know, the pastor and maybe a couple of the people come together. You know, maybe have like somebody playing some music or something, but it's just basically, you know, a gathering of the family at the church. And, you know, again, he refused the money from the owner of that website who said he would pay for the costs or whatever. So yeah, it just seems to me like there's something else going on there, and that he's really sticking to the rules to the point of absurdity, where, you know, he forced his family to go to another church that they were maybe unfamiliar with. It doesn't seem like they were trying to take advantage of anything. They just kind of, you know, that's their home church. That's where they wanted things taken care of. And for him to make such a big stink out of it really just doesn't seem right to me. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I would definitely say in that kind of vein that it would be hypocritical. It goes against the message that they're purporting, and it goes against the general community aspect that's inherent in a lot of religious communities. But then again, I have no idea what they purport. For all I know, that particular church could be like, yeah, people don't give you money, then screw those guys.
All right.
It's a Republican church.
They must read out of the book of John a lot.
Oh. So
it sounds like it sounds like an insurance company to me. Like they missed their premium payment one time, so like sorry, coverage is denied. That's it. Sorry.
I can just see him now. He's like looking in his ledger where you know, he's up there preaching and he's just marking off the names every single week. Like, yep, tithe. And he's like looking in there and he's like,
Keep track of that. Supposedly, churches, at least most of the ones that I've been to, supposedly bring in this treasurer who is not a member of the church, who is totally unaffiliated with the church, to prevent scandals like, you know, misappropriating church funds from occurring. Well, I have had twice it happened to me where a pastor or a deacon came to the side and was like, hey, you know, I was just checking on you and everything. Noticed you didn't, you know, make your weekly donation or pay your tithes this month. And so that led me to believe that even though that they supposedly have this system where some outsider is handling the funds, they still have access to it and they know who is tithing. So it kind of illustrates the effect that you said. He's sitting up there with his ledger like, okay, this week, oh, no, X did not pay those tithes. So anyway, if you guys don't have anything else to say, just for being a fucking douchebag and, like, not respecting this 93-year-old woman who was in a coma for, even just being in a coma, I mean, does that not excuse the tithes? Like, really? Like, I'm in a coma, but I still got to pay the tithes, whatever. So for
you
being...
should have planned for this.
You need to have an account set to the side just in case something happens to you and you're unable to pay your tithes. You got to keep it going for a while. So for this nonsense that this pastor has done, we're going to stamp him with Hypocrite of the Week. Sorry that we couldn't get the video working. I don't know what's going on there. I couldn't get any video to work. I pulled up 3 different ones, so sorry for that. We'll try to include a link to the video in the comment section. Just go ahead and wrap it up, guys. I saw that we lost Brandon there.
Oh, that's a shame. I liked him. I'm Gator Lucum. You all should subscribe to me because it's actually exciting to do so. You can find me Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Godless Voices. Have fun. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
And I am John Gleason, the Godless Engineer. You can find me on Facebook by just typing in Godless Engineer or Godless Engineering into the little Facebook search bar thing there. You'll find my page as well as a number of groups. I would highly suggest you join the original main group that is Godless Engineering. We just currently broke about 10,000 members in there, so it's a very active group, and I think that a lot of people will like it. And you can also find me on YouTube, where I upload videos. While I was off on the, around Christmas and New Year's, I was uploading a whole bunch of videos, but I'm probably going to be slowing down a little bit. Anyways, find me on YouTube. Check me out there, as well as Instagram and Twitter. I know some in the chat on the video mentioned gaming. I am a gamer as well. You can find me on Steam, just Godless Engineer, as well as Twitch. I'm on there as Godless Engineer as well. So I hope to see you guys out there.
And lastly, I am Brendan, the Prototype Atheist. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all those good places. One thing I wanted to mention is please check out, our website, thesecularroundtable.com. Purchase some T-shirts if you want to support both our efforts and the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Check out the video that Aeolus just put out on his channel. It kind of shows the efforts that he is making with, any donations that we're receiving through our Patreon accounts. Or anything that we have coming in is going out to do philanthropy. He's making these backpacks for the homeless to kind of support that community. He also has a project going on where he's collecting signs from the homeless to kind of bring attention to the plight of these people. Because really it could happen to anybody. These aren't necessarily people who have chosen to be homeless. They're just might be the victims of bad luck or have had things happen to them in their lives. So that's kind of the route that we've decided to go at this time as far as philanthropic efforts. So anything that you're willing to give towards that end, feel free to do so. We're not going to beg or anything. If it's something you can part with a couple bucks, then please do and support that effort. And that's pretty much it. So you know where to find me.
Yes, and I'm Aeolus, your host, a.k.a. your favorite atheist. And by the way, I've got this magic fucking screwdriver, so yeah, if you want to try to disprove that my screwdriver isn't magic, you can't, because it's supernatural, and it operates outside the realms of the natural world. So you can't even test it with science, because science can only test things in the natural world. Try to disprove it, I bet you can't. Anyway, I have a great video over on my channel you should check out. It's called How Has Atheism Changed Your Life? And it's actually a contest that you can enter. And what you do is you create a response video to my video, How Atheism Has Changed Your Life, and just tell us how atheism has changed your life. And I see, oh no! Is that the docs? It's the docs.
I have a better screwdriver than you.
Oh, it's the docs. Did you get that from ThinkGeek?
Yeah, well, this is actually the remote control. So if I wanted to, I could change channels and stuff with it, and it makes noise.
Nice.
My hat's better than yours.
Well, I got a better screwdriver. Anyways, sorry to interrupt you there, Aeolus.
Yeah, so I have a great video on my channel, How Atheism Has Changed Your Life. If you'd like to be entered into a contest to win a free Atheist box next month, all you have to do is create a response video and just let us know how atheism has changed your life. What positive impacts has it had on your life? But if you're not interested in doing that contest, maybe you're just a lazy motherfucker like me and you just want to go purchase an Atheist box, you can head over to atheismbox.com and check out the monthly subscription box designed just for you. Yes, you atheist heathen. Go over there and check it out. They're all about promoting positivity and the understanding of science without bashing and trashing any religion. And to me, that's a very fantastic thing. And, you know, a lot of times we're accused of bashing and trashing religion, but I say we're bashing and trashing ignorance, which is far more important. So with that being said, as Brendan mentioned, we have a lot of philanthropy-related projects that you can check out at patreon.com/reason. We have all our milestones listed over there. So go check that out. All money that is obtained through this Patreon or my channel, which I've been bringing in some funds here and there from ad revenue. And as you can see, based on my videos, I've already been putting these backpacks together. I already have a system going, and I'm actually actively going out and increasing awareness for homelessness here in my city because the mayor continues to bulldoze homeless encampments and basically mistreat the homeless people in my area. And she's currently trying to make it illegal to be homeless, which is absolutely ridiculous. But moving on, I'm Aeolus, your host, a.k.a. your favorite atheist. Check out our website at thesecularroundtable.com. Don't forget to check out Religion Hurts Humanity and Philosophical Atheism, the Facebook pages. And don't forget to subscribe to Data Lucum, the Godless Engineer, and the Prototype Atheist, because we all make great motherfucking content. And that's all I have to say. Peace out, motherfuckers. Deuces. Think skeptically, stay godless, and keep calm. It seems legit.
Mention the other Brandon.
Oh yeah, shout out to the other Brandon. I almost forgot because he's like got lagged out or dipped out. Brandon, aka the Alienated Reality. If you're interested in joining our show as a guest, you are more than welcome to do so. Next week is going to be abortion. We already have a guest planned, and the following week we're going to have John Smith on to discuss something to do with the Bible. Not sure just what that is just yet, but we'll figure it out. Probably just debunking the nonsense. But we thank you guys for watching. We thank you for all of your efforts to support our channels and the great things that we do. So with that being said, as I always say, thanks for watching.